Good evening, folks. Welcome to yet another episode of the Oz Crow Soccer Show. It's Season 2, Episode 3, which means in total we've hit Episode 33 tonight. My name is Tonci Prusak. Very happy to be here tonight with this, for the third episode of the season. And joining me all the way from Sydney tonight, we've got a very strong Sydney focus in our show. Mr. Ante Grabovac. Ante, gospodine, di si mi. How are you, mate?
Evo me, di si ti?
I'm in cold Geelong, down south. What do you guys call us? The Mexicans, south of the border, up in New South Wales. How are you, mate? How's things?
Excellent, thanks. Yeah, all good. Very excited. Looking forward to our chat with our very special guest coming up. And, post some questions if anyone is online.
Yeah, by the way, he does look a little bit Mexican in his appearance these days as he starts to get a little bit older, but he is the Hrvatski Zet, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a bit later on. But who is our big guest tonight?
Big friend of the Croatian community, which is our friend Andy Paschalidis, who's got a big history with obviously the NSL. I think he's been covering football for the past 40 years, whether it be here in Australia or overseas in India, who knows where else. And yeah, he's got a lot of stories to tell. And of course, he's heavily involved, and it is his baby, the Heartbeat of Football, which is a very, very important particular organization, which helps to bring knowledge and of course brings about a lot of, information. And obviously the, what do you call those things that they install to help save people? Anyway, he'll cover
Defibrillators.
The defibrillators, that's it. Yes. He's bringing them to all the grounds because, of course, he's got numerous stories where it's saved a lot of lives and also the great work by Heartbeat of Football.
Yeah, no, it should be an awesome show. He's got some great stories to tell, not only about obviously the Heartbeat of Football, and actually there is a strong Croatian connection in how it was formed. But this week coming, there's going to be a big what's it called? Event function that's going to involve, a very good friend of the shows. Let's just say that, who's a member of a band, a Croatian drummer. We'll talk a little bit more about that. There's a lot to talk about there, mate. News galore. We've got a heap of stories and news roundup that we do each week. We're going to also cover some interesting things that are happening in Croatia. In fact, we've also got some groundbreaking news as well. A story that's breaking as we speak over in Lijepa Naša. So to do with football, and that has also got an Australian connection, Croatian connection. Now, speaking of Australian Croatian connections, Ante, we were hoping to get a coach tonight, but he's actually suffering a little bit of jet lag, just jetted back into the country. We're talking about Josip Lončarić, who was the coach of the Australian Croatian under-14 select team. They last week over the weekend took part in an international tournament for under-14 teams, the cream of the crop as far as the Croatian under-14 teams are concerned in Croatia. They were involved in a tournament in Vukovar. Now, he's had a bit of jet lag and he's also had some coaching commitments down in Melbourne, but he will be joining us next week, as will hopefully Petar Markovic, who's still in Croatia from Sydney. They had the co-coaching duties, if you like, but then we've got a little bit of a report including some footage from that tournament. So that and a lot more, mate. We're going to take a quick news break, if you like, and we'll take a quick break, an ad break, and when we return, it's time for the news desk with yourself, Ante. So you get yourself ready. You've got about 30 seconds to get yourself ready.
You got to put the schminker on, yeah.
Put the schminker on, and as soon as you mention that, I sneeze after that. Thank you. All right, guys, don't go away. It's episode 33 of the Oz Crow Soccer Show. We'll be right back with the news desk.
Welcome to Hrvatski Studio Architecture. Our approach combines modern design with harmonious solutions tailored to your unique needs. We listen closely to your vision and turn it into a functional, beautiful living environment that truly feels like home. Our designs cater to your needs and evolve with you over time, encouraging deeper connections with family and friends. Specializing in custom residential homes and boutique apartments, we balance luxury and comfort to create a welcoming atmosphere for everyone to enjoy. Discover a world of inviting and captivating design at www.hrvatskstudio.com.au. Contact us for a journey from idea to reality. Hrvatski Studio Architecture, turning your dreams into reality.
We're back.
Over to you, Ante.
Let's do it. All right, let's start in Tassie this week, where the Glenorchy Knights had a 1-0 win over South Hobart. And the Glenorchy Knights, after 4 rounds, are sitting in second position. This weekend, they've got a Friday night match away to Kingsborough Lions. Over in NPL Victoria, we had 3 matches with Moreland losing to the Melbourne Knights by 4-1. North Geelong lost at home to Dandenong Thunder, and you covered that match, didn't you, Tonci?
I did, mate, and I tell you what, when things are going well for you and you're traveling well, every lady luck seems to shine on you. When things are going bad, no one wants to know about you, including luck. And I tell you, there was Marvin Browala missed a penalty. Caleb Mikulic, he had that many chances. It would have been easier to miss some of them, but they just would not go in. Young Luke Zivcic, who made who scored his first senior goal the week before, 17-year-old, he had this gilt-edged opportunity to head the ball past the keeper, but somehow the keeper, mind you, he was a substitute keeper, swatted the ball away. Things aren't looking good for North Geelong in the sense that they, look certain relegation fodder for this season, but the good news is they've got a lot of talented young players coming up through the ranks, getting that opportunity. There was a 16-year-old, there was a 17, 2 17-year-olds, there's another 18-year-old. Mate, it's not all doom and gloom long term, but certainly short term things are not looking good, as is the case with another Croatian club, unfortunately.
You're talking about St. Albans, where they lost 5-1 to Altona Manijic, and they're sitting 12th on the ladder.
Yep, they lost to the Macedonci, and you never like losing to the rivals and that sort of stuff, and that's the Western Suburbs derby, that one. But, I don't know what is happening there, but they have not had a very good run lately. But look, at least the Knights are doing well. That's one Croatian club doing well in the NPL Victoria competition, aren't they?
Yeah, currently sitting in 4th position. So let's hope they can rise even further up that particular ladder after a commanding victory on the weekend. Moving over to NPL 2 in Victoria, and Dandenong City had a good away win to Moreland Zebras, and they're sitting in 7th position at this particular point in time. The next fixtures in Melbourne. So we've got the Knights at home on Monday against Green Gully. That's a 7:30 p.m. kickoff. Of course, that's Anzac Day Eve. And then we've got Saturday, St. Albans are away, 3 p.m. kickoff. Friday night, we've got North Geelong against Heidelberg at the old Olympic Village. That's a classic NSL ground. I'm sure Andy's got some stories about that place. And then, of course, we've got Dandenong at home against Kingston City on Friday night as well. Moving on to Capital Football, and we had Canberra, Croatia smashing Tuggeranong United by 6-1, and Canberra Olympic unfortunately defeated O'Connor Knights 2-0. Canberra FC is sitting third, and O'Connor are currently sitting sixth in that 8-team competition. And this weekend, they're both at home. And so get on down and check out both Canberra, Croatia, and O'Connor Knights.
Yeah, good stuff.
Moving on to the Gong. And South Coast United registered their first victory of the season with a 1-0 win over Coniston, which was fantastic. 83rd minute goal by Trebinčević. And so that brings them down to second from bottom at the moment. And this weekend, they're away to Port Kembla. Moving on into Hrvatski Zagreb, and unfortunately, after a good run of results, they lost 2-0 to South Coast Flames, and that puts them in 10th position. This Saturday night, April 22, they're playing at Fraser Park, and as we'll be talking with Andy, right across the road is the gig at the Camelot Lounge for the Heartbeat of Football. So all your Hrvatski Zagreb fans who are attending on Saturday evening, just walk across the road and you'll get to the Camelot Lounge for the great Heartbeat of Football event. Sydney United, gee, I've got to say, this was one of the dreariest matches. I drove down to Wollongong.
Yeah.
There weren't many highlights. It was not many shots on goal. And in the end, it was a 0-0 stalemate. And let me tell you, a bit of a forgettable afternoon. The unfortunate thing with United is that they've only scored 3 goals in the past 6 matches. So hopefully they can start scoring a few more goals because they do have the firepower there. But, of course, the good thing is that they're keeping a couple of clean sheets. So this
now, Ante, sorry to cut you off, but apparently one of the most entertaining parts of this game wasn't actually the game itself, but something that happened at halftime that sort of has a tradition back to the old NSL days. You want to tell us a little bit about what you were so mesmerised by?
Yeah, the Wolves mascot still exists. For those of you who ventured down to Wollongong during the NSL days, the Wolf still exists, and the kids do chase him around the pitch, and they try and drag his tail off. So, yeah, that was probably one of the most entertaining features. Chase the Wolf. Which
what do they get if they win? What do they get if they win? A soccer ball? Or?
I've got no idea. Okay. Yeah, I didn't pay attention to that. I was just mesmerised by all these kids running after this big wolf. So yeah, interesting. Yeah,
good stuff. Always a great trip down to
United. That's right. And Sydney United are at home this Sunday, 3 p.m. kickoff against NWS Spirit, who of course they played in the Waratah Cup final last year. So hopefully they can register a win and get revenge on them. Over in the Gold Coast, there was no game this week, and this Saturday they take on Brisbane Roar Youth at the Gold Coast Croatia Sports Centre, and Gold Coast are sitting 4th currently. Over in South Australia, there was no game again this week. The Raiders are sitting pretty first, and they've actually got 2 matches over this weekend. They're playing on Friday night at home, and they are playing on Tuesday, which is Anzac Day, at home as well. So go down there and support them if you are in the Adelaide vicinity. And moving over to the Western Knights, who were, of course, our feature club on the show last week. They had a big 5-0 victory against Dianella White Eagles. So well done to the Knights there. And so they're sitting pretty with 4 victories, 100% record there.
Now, Ante, last year, Josip and I had this thing that we sincerely believe that when a club comes on the Oz Crow Soccer Show, and they are the featured club, it just instills this euphoria into the whole club. And the following week, without fail, correct me if I'm wrong, and if Josip's on the watching the stream, he can pop it in the chat section. Without fail, that team would end up prevailing, winning the following week. So, folks, we just saw what happened with the Western Knights last week. By the way, that was a great show, wasn't it?
And don't forget, Eric, it was a great show, and it happened with the Melbourne Knights the week before. Don't forget as well, because they ended up winning too. So we're 2 from 2 this year. 2 from 2.
We just cannot. We are like, we've got the Midas touch. But last week, if you haven't watched last week's show, Ante Eric, now he's of Malaysian extraction, Indonesian extraction, something like that. He's the technical director there, mate. He's a very, very entertaining fellow. We had Dean Zlendich, the president of Western Knights. If you really want to see that episode, you didn't have a chance to do it, you could go on our Facebook page in the video section, or if you can even go on our YouTube channel, the Oz Crow Soccer Show. Have a look at the archives there. Have a look at the past videos there. You'll be able to watch it. But, yeah, really, really entertaining episode there. And, the Midas touch continues with the Oz Crow Soccer Show, Ante.
Let it continue. The Western Knights and Guelph have got Australia Cup fixtures this Saturday afternoon. So let's hope that they can stay alive and beat their oppositions. Speaking of the Australia Cup, like we said, Western Knights and Guelph, Croatia have got matches this Saturday. Next Wednesday, Sydney United take on Vukovar, which is, of course, the old Sydney City. So that's 7:30 p.m. kickoff at the Sydney United Sports Centre. And on the right-hand side, you can still see the Croatian clubs around the country who are still alive. Canberra, Croatia had a good victory last night against the Monaro Panthers, who, of course, were Sydney United's opposition last year in the Cup as well. So, hopefully the Croatian clubs can stay there as long as possible.
Absolutely. Okay, over to Croatia.
Indeed.
Well, let's look at the results there of the last round that was played. Gorica defeating Šibenik in a big way. 4-0 winners over Šibenik. That's the battle of the relegation. And Željko Sopić, he's this mate. He reminds me of a bald Vinnie Jones, someone like that. He's a scary character. He's the coach of Gorica. Now, he kind of threatened the players that even though they just won 4-0 against their direct relegation opponent, when they got back to Zagreb at 1 o'clock after midnight, they were all going to go to the stadium, and he called again, listen to this, an impromptu training session under lights at 1 o'clock a.m. Mate, the guy is an absolute nutter. And it's just gone viral. If you haven't seen this, it was on their social media channels. And I think that the actual official announcement was, if you're in the vicinity of the Gorica Stadium and you saw the lights turned on at like 1 a.m. last night, it wasn't anything. It wasn't a malfunction. It was actually the boys training after they'd come back from Dalmatia. Mate, the guy's a nutter, but he's getting results. And in his first thing in the press conference was we have to now forget about this result. We have to now turn our attention to our next game. I mean, the guy is just insane. I think they're playing Rijeka now, who, since the mid-season break, has been the best performing team in the Croatian league. So, like, they've amassed the most points. They are absolutely in incredible form. They beat Hajduk Split 2-0. The coach, Sergej Jakirovic, is from Metkovic, a famous Metkovic surname there, along with like Igor Štimac and Dario Srna. And this guy, formerly with Zrinski Mostar, where he achieved great results, he has now turned a hack side into one of the best performing sides in the Prva Liga. So Rijeka 2-0 winners over Hajduk Split. Interestingly, no Marko Livaja for Hajduk Split. What does that mean? No Marko Livaja, no Hajduk Split, unfortunately. Dinamo Zagreb smashed Slaven Belupo 4-0. We'll come back to this, Ante, if that's all right. Let's jump over to Osijek and Lokomotiva. There's another team that's really struggling at the moment. Osijek, 2-2 draw at home against Lokomotiva. They haven't won in like 2 months. Varaždin and Istra fought out a 0-0 draw up in Varaždin. But the big one, Dinamo Zagreb, 4-0 winners over Slaven Belupo. Magnificent effort by Dinamo Zagreb. They got the new coach Igor Bišćan. There's a bit of euphoria there, and they're talking Igor Bišćan he's the return of that real positive era at Dinamo Zagreb. And if this is the start of a really good era, the rest of the HNL clubs might as well put the white flag up, but this also augurs well for Dinamo Zagreb in Europe next year as well. Now, the person that's supposedly pulling the strings behind the scenes and is starting to get more and more influence in the boardroom is Dario Šimić. So he represents the good struja at Dinamo Zagreb. Now, it'll be great to know what's going to happen in the next few weeks, months, whatever. But that's not the only positive thing that was happening at Dinamo Zagreb at Maksimir. The newest supporters club in Croatia. They just embarked. Well. The cutest. And they just embarked on their first gostovanje, their first away trip. Dinamo Zagreb came out. They're called the Podravske Štuke. There's Slaven Belupos new cheer squad. There's about 53 members apparently, and they all come from within the club, the school of football, as they call it, the Škola Nogometa. And this is them in full action. I think there's a kid there over the age of 10. Isn't that right?
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well done. The new generation.
The new generation, hopefully they're not crazy hooligans, but maybe they're hooligans in the making. I don't know. But the Podravske Štuke, they have been formed, and they are now a fully fledged supporters club because they went on their first away trip. Dinamo Zagreb have been very benevolent, Dinamo Zagreb. We'll talk about this very shortly. But they offered the Podravske Štuke, I think, free entry, plus they also gave them some drinks and sandwichy as well. It's a beautiful story. Like,
what sort of drinks? What sort of drink? No rakia, right? Yeah.
No. It would have been, cocktail or, maybe Cedevita or something like that. Yeah. But look,
Cedevita.
Kudos to Slaven Belupos' newest fan club, but they've still got a little long way to go to match Hajduks, who've got Ritso, the actual Ritso's the what is it, the mascot. And look, kudos to Hajduk Split off the field. They're doing some amazing things and continue to do so. They've actually got a designated family only area of the stand, and they reckon, is it sad to say or is it good to say, they probably get more people in that family enclosure than a lot of the other HNL clubs get in total attendance. But that's that. Now, the other thing that Dinamo Zagreb have done really well, Ante, really nicely, is they've actually helped Hajduk Split, because Saturday morning, Hajduk Split under-19s are taking on AC Milan under-19s in the UEFA Youth League semi-finals. 2:00 our time here in Australia. And Dinamo Zagreb have actually, having played Milan under-19s in the group phase, they've actually offered all their intelligentsia, all their intelligence, all the notes they've got. They've actually offered it to Hajduk Split so that Hajduk can, have all the information at their disposal to beat the Italians. And that's how it should be, Ante. That's at excellent. The end of the day, we're rivals. The borders on hatred. But when Croatian clubs, doesn't matter who it is, venture outside the border of Croatia and take on other countries and other teams, we all band together, we all support them. And that's great to see. That truly is awesome work.
That's exactly how it should be, absolutely.
And before I go, more of it. Yeah, before I go on, Ante, we've got Josip Žilić in the comments section. He says, spot on, Tonci Prusas. Now, the reason he says that is because, yes, when the clubs come on our show and they are featured in our Club in Focus segment, they inevitably go on to do well. So we have got the Midas touch, and it started off with Josip last year, and it's continued with you, Ante. So clubs out there, in Croatian clubs in club land, if you want to do well, make sure you come on the show, sponsor an episode of the show so that we feature you in our Club in Focus segment, and the following week, bang, you're guaranteed a victory.
You're a winner.
Yeah. So if we quickly look back at that Hrvatska Nogometna Liga standings, Dinamo Zagreb, they've sailed away. They can't, with 4 rounds to go, they cannot be.
No, more than 4. There's still quite a few. There's 36, right? So 7.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a few more. Actually, my maths was never good, but so mathematically they can still, like Hajduk can still dislodge Dinamo.
Unlikely.
But as a Hajduk Split supporter, I'll admit it that that's very, very highly unlikely. Let's turn all the attention now, apart from the battle for relegation. Look at that. Šibenik 24 points, Gorica 23 points. Anyone's game there. Let's look at the second division, and Rudeš, another team from Zagreb. They are pretty much home and hosed that they are going to get into next year's Prva Liga. Some really good stuff happening behind the scenes at Rudeš, both on the field and off the field as well. I guess the only problem there is that we've got too many clubs from Zagreb in a 10-team competition, and they did call it a few years back the Tramvaj Liga, because there was like about 4 or 5 Zagreb satellite clubs in the Croatian league. And but look, when you've got 1 million people in Zagreb and 4 million or just under 4 million total population, you expect a quarter of everything's going to come from Zagreb, isn't it? But
and Hrvatski Dragovoljac look to be doing the double relegation. They were relegated this year from first division, so they're going to be dropped again. Yeah, so that's something you don't want.
Yeah. Now it's interesting because Kustošija and Samir Toplak, who's a bit of a legend at rescuing clubs in the Prva Liga, he's now been appointed coach of Kustošija, another Zagreb club, and they defeated Rudeš on the weekend. Was there a bit of match fixing involved in there? I don't think so. But yeah, Kustošija, Jarun and Hrvatski Dragovoljac, 3 out of the bottom 4 clubs in the second division are all from Zagreb. So yeah, Dragovoljac, unfortunately, will they do the double whammy? That's unfortunate, but that certainly looks like that may well be the case. Yeah. Now, as we were going to air, Ante, there's a story that's breaking that's got a bit of an Australian-Croatian connection, and unfortunately, it's not a very good story. Do you want to tell us a bit more about what's going on there?
Yeah, the word is that Josip Šimunić will be released from his under-19s coaching job of the national team, which will be very sad for us because Aussie Joe, of course, was here with the HNS just back in January, and he's a great ambassador for Croatian football. And so, yeah, I mean, hopefully he can stay within the realms of the Croatian football and the HNS. But yeah, it looks like the big rumours are that he will be released from his job because the under-19s did not qualify for the championships.
My tip, he'll still be involved in Croatian football, and I wouldn't be surprised if he stays involved with one of the Zagreb clubs, because he's got a lot of mates that are involved and are starting to get involved, namely clubs like Rudeš, obviously Dinamo Zagreb. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets involved in some academy or something like that. Because,
let's hope so.
Absolutely. Now, before we do wrap up the news desk, Hrvatski Vjesnik, we've both got a long and proud history with the Croatian Herald. Jure Sabljak, now the editor-in-chief there at the Hrvatski Vjesnik, in the latest edition. That's not the right graphic. That's coming on a little later on in the show. A lot of stories there about Melbourne, Croatia celebrating their 70 years, and there's some great stories there, both in the new generation, the the English supplement there, and as well as in the Croatian supplement. So if you haven't got your hands on the Croatian Herald, do so. I think that was out today. Today's the 19th of April. So that should have hit most news stands if it hasn't already. And was there anything else news-wise? I think we've covered everything, haven't we?
That's it for now.
All right. Well, we're going to take a very, very short break. When we return, we've got a little report that we prepared earlier today about the Croatian Australian Croatian select team that travelled to Croatia. Here's a little bit of that. Remembering next week we hope to get Josip Lončarić and Petar Marković, the two co-coaches, and there's a photo there of the two involved, hopefully on the show. And Ante, before I forget, there's a lot of news items galore. Next Wednesday, Sydney United have got their, as you mentioned it, the Australia Cup fixture. As a result, we will actually be coming out on Tuesday night. So Anzac Day night will be on Tuesday night next week, not Wednesday night. So Tuesday night at 8 p.m. And we're going to have a bumper show next week. But folks, don't go away. Here's a small report of what happened in Vukovar over the last weekend. A 15-player Australian Croatian under-14 select squad last week took part in the inaugural Turnir Hrvatskih Branitelja in Vukovar for the first time ever. The 3-day event brings together the under-14 teams from all the top-flight Croatian clubs, as well as representative squads from the Croatian diaspora, from countries such as Austria, Switzerland, Germany, the United States and Canada, as well as Australia. The hastily assembled squad was chosen and the tour organised in a little over 6 weeks following the Croatian Soccer Federation delegation's visit down under in February, when training sessions were held in both Sydney and Melbourne and were attended by former Vatreni legends Petar Krpan,
Stipe Pletikosa and Canberra-born Josip Šimunić, as well as Croatian national team coach Zlatko Dalic. The Australian Croatian Select touring party included Sydney-based players Leon Chop, Matthias Melo, Anton Pavlek, Jacob Jedinak, Sami Vrtovski, Niko Bazdaric, Lukas Čuljak, Aidan Laboja, and Nicholas Maruncic. 5 players came from Melbourne, including St Albans Dinamo's Nicholas Karsic, Western United's Jordan Vonja, and Melbourne Knights trio Nicholas Crnac, Oliver Torkic, and Christian Klisanin, while Nicholas Škorjanec was the lone Geelong-based player. The co-coaches included Petar Markovic from Sydney and Josip Lončarić from Melbourne, with the accompanying team officials including Melbourne Knights President Pavi Jusup, Knights Vice President Šime Pincic, and the President of the Croatian Soccer Association of Australia, Jure Dragovic. With only one light training session able to be organised before the tournament's kick-off, it was no surprise the team would prove no match for their well-drilled and settled squads from Croatian professional academy sides NK Osijek, Istra Pula, and eventual finalist HNK Gorica. But the squad not only won the hearts and applause of the other clubs and supporters, but they also took out the tournament's highly revered Fair Play Award. It is hoped that an Australian Croatian select squad will be sent again next year to the prestigious Turnir Hrvatskih Branitelja tournament in Vukovar.
Welcome to Slovicek Studio Architecture. Our approach combines modern design with harmonious solutions tailored to your unique needs. We listen closely to your vision and turn it into a functional, beautiful living environment that truly feels like home. Our designs cater to your needs and evolve with you over time, encouraging deeper connections with family and friends. Specializing in custom residential homes and boutique apartments, we balance luxury and comfort to create a welcoming atmosphere for everyone to enjoy. Discover a world of inviting and captivating design at www.slovicekstudio.com.au. Contact us for a journey from idea to reality. Slovicek Studio Architecture, turning your dreams into reality.
Welcome back to the Oz Crow Soccer Show, and now apparently we prepared that report, or I prepared that report a little earlier today. There was a glaring inaccuracy in that report. Ante, can you guess? I was trying to, I did it intentionally just to see if you were paying attention.
Yes, it wasn't the first tournament. It was the first tournament that we've had Australian teams in the tournament.
Stop. Good. Very good. Yeah. It wasn't the inaugural Turnir Hrvatskih Branitelja, or tournament of the Croatian defenders in Vukovar. I think it's the 19th or 20th edition, something like that. So it's been a long running and a very prestigious tournament. And they actually said that the majority of the Vatrini, if not all of the Vatrini, at some stage started their junior representative days playing in that tournament for whatever their club team was. So quite a prestigious tournament. Next week, cannot wait to either have Josip Lončarić or Petar Markovic, or both, on the show at the same time talking about it. And from what I gather, from what I've heard, they're already starting to put together plans and for next year and year after. So they certainly do intend for this to become an annual event. So all you under 13s now, start training, start improving your football, and early next year you may get selected a notice to go to Croatia. How good would that be?
Awesome.
Mate, what's coming up next? Something we've all been waiting for.
Yes. We've got a very, very special guest who is joining us, and to promote the Heartbeat of Rock, of course, is the basically heart and soul of the Heartbeat of Football. And on Saturday, 22nd of April, there's a big fundraiser happening at the Camelot Lounge in Marrickville. If you haven't been there, it's actually owned by a Croatian, the Camelot Lounge. So get on down there. It's a fantastic venue. And live entertainment provided by the Mandrilos, who, again, have got all three are Croatian members, including Mila Abramovic, who I believe is watching right at this particular point in time because he's taking the mickey out of me constantly, and Pete Banicevic and Tony Jurkic. And, yes, everyone get on down there. but it is my great pleasure to introduce this particular gentleman to the show, and that is none other than the legend himself, Mr. Andrew Paschalidis. Andy, good evening.
Yeah, so how are we? It's Andy Paschalidis tonight. Let's get
Paschalidis, we're going to change your name. Well, last week we had Iron Eric, the Western Knights. He was the
Technical
TD,
director.
and he said, "Look, I don't have to do anything. I've already got an IC on the end of my name. I just have to change the pronunciation of it. But you've got an IS. We can change it to an IC very, very quickly. But you are the Hrvatski Zet, the Croatian Son-In-Law. So, how are you, my friend?"
Well, you know what? My grandson, his mother is Croatian. There you go.
More connections. They never stop with you, Andy.
Related to Tommy Prusak, who you would remember at Sydney, Croatia, and of course now with Hrvatski Zagreb.
Yeah. No relation to me. We do have Prusac's up in Sydney, but no relation. Big cheerio to the crew.
Yeah,
up there.
and Tommy's dad, Nicola, was inaugurated into the Hall of Fame last year. Yes, because he was actually the founding member of Hrvatski Zagreb back in 1970 as well, and all the work that he's done for the club. So yeah, Tommy Prusac's father, Nicola Prusac, very well connected.
That's one thing that's very close to my heart. That as much as we grew up, you know, it was wog ball, whatever. We didn't care. For me, the fabric of football post the war, and I spent a bit of time with Graham Arnold and Craig Johnson last week. I think what the multicultural community has brought to this country to start up their clubs, no matter whether they're Croatian, Macedonian, Greek, Serbian, Italian, whatever it is, to have that for their community. It was the meeting place. It was where work was sorted out for you. If you didn't have employment, marriages were made, friendships for life were made. And it's wonderful to see people that are recognised, because even with my dad and Sydney Olympic, and when I started watching them as a 9-year-old and remembering knocks on the door. I remember the classic one was when Olympic were going to sign Marshall Soper. So Dad just pulled out a lazy 500 for the transfer. He goes, "No, we have to get him. Good player. Of course we have to sign him." So, yeah, it's good to see Mr. Prusak being honoured. And for Melbourne, Croatia to be celebrating 70 years, because, you know, the recent passing of Ange Chimita, for me, you know, whenever these things happen in football, and even this week, former Sydney Croatia coach and a coach of a few clubs, Manfred Schaefer, we say farewell to him on Friday. You can't forget the contribution of what I call the pioneers of football in so many ways. They created the clubs, they brought us together, and you know, our passion, our first generation, we were brought up on football. Yeah, I'm trying to understand why there aren't as many Italian, Croatian, Greek, and so on coming through into the national team setups. But I think the significant thing is, as we were first born here after the war, our parents came with nothing but a suitcase full of cash money, mind you, in my another story. But you know what I'm saying? I think football was a culture, it was a way of life, and it was something that gave us so much joy, and it's given me incredible joy over a number of decades now. And, you know, being on this show, I reflect back on the year I got married, going to the Croatian tournament in Canberra, filming Ned Zelic as a 17-year-old, commentating Mark Viduka's debut as a teenager at Summer Street, emceeing Croatian tournaments on the Gold Coast with a very famous Australian Croatian model. My God, I almost tripped over when they told me she was going to be co-host. But, you know, the contribution, looking at your show, the contribution of the Croatian community to football in Australia has been significant, because, you know, you talk about the golden generation. You could almost call it the Greek golden generation through the 90s, and then the Croatian golden generation that would come in the 2000s in so many ways. Not so much reinforced to me when I was in Dublin. Australia played the Republic of Ireland. We lost that game. Dukes almost scored a couple, unfortunately. I met Metallica that night. They were playing with Linkin Park the next night.
Jeez, now we really are get the memories flooding back. Wow. Folks, tonight's show's going to go for 2 hours. Just a word of warning.
At least. Minimum.
I'm wearing this shirt. When I met all the Warrington Croatian boys that Gold Coast tournament and dancing on the table with Zelko Kalic's father, and then not remembering how I got back to my hotel room, by waking up in the hotel room and then starting again at 9 a.m. But, you know, for me, there's been so much interaction with the Croatian community. I know that this man is not of Croatian background, but he was more than Croatian than most. But to be involved with David Savinski, particularly towards the end, Tonci, you remember we did the wake, we did the fundraiser there, we did a fundraiser in Wollongong. You know, a man who won 4 titles, but see, this is the thing, and Graham Arnold has said this at Heartbeat of Football events. He corrected me actually at the inaugural Heartbeat of Football function where we had 33 ex-Socceroos, from Tim Cale to Foster to Slater to Arnold, Shavor, Jarkov, Ivanovic, Nastevsky, and so on and so forth. So we, you know, we were there that night, and Arnie turned around and goes, Andy, it's not Sydney United 58, mate. It's Sydney, Croatia. Sydney, Croatia. Look, I always think whoever you are, whatever your race, your religion, respect who you are and your culture. And you know, enjoy the game. You know, we shouldn't be fighting amongst ourselves. We should be blessed that we love a game that has brought so much joy for millions of people around the world. 100%. And I always am proud to be involved in anything that is multicultural. I also wear other hats, aside from founding Heartbeat of Football with a wonderful team of volunteers. It wouldn't be happening without the volunteers. I'm also on the Office of Sport of New South Wales Multicultural Advisory Council. I'm a proud Australia Day ambassador. And this weekend, I'm doing my first ever testing for Special Olympics athletes, where I was before. I had to make the hard decision to leave that to start Heartbeat of Football, because I believe everyone should be able to play sport, no matter their ability or, dare I say, disability. And it's not a disability to be special needs, because they are wonderful people. And, you know, everyone should enjoy the game, and the World Game, you know, it brings us together in a way.
Absolutely.
Well said, Andy. Sorry, Tonci, but you mentioned the World Game.
Hey, sorry. I've got to jump in. It was fantastic being on your show. That intro took 24 minutes. I've got to go now.
No, we've got another 2 hours. 2 hours.
2 hours.
No,
counting.
You're mentioning the importance of football, etc. And tell us what are your thoughts on this proposed second division and bringing back all of these clubs into a virtual, you know, probably, you know, NSL type of thing, and hopefully getting eventual promotion to the A-League.
You know, say Friday night, I was there at the Jets game against Macarthur, and I spoke before the game in the corporate function, as did Graham Arnold. I was there for Better Breathing Sport, which is a unique product in itself. So Google that. Tim Cale and Brett Lee are ambassadors. But it was interesting, there was prospective owners in the room, and they were looking at the franchise, because that franchise is sort of co-owned by a few different groups. And my concern with the A-League is the amount of money that's been spent. The TV ratings at the moment are very, very perilous. You know, maybe I'm selfish because of where I was at SBS and it was free to wear. So World Soccer Saturday, Serie A Sunday morning, on the ball with Andy and Johnny, match of the day live Sunday night, highlight show Monday night, every World Cup tournament and different football events around the globe that cost you nothing. It was a one-stop shop. So now I've got to have Paramount, I've got to have Stan, I've got to have, you know, a whole Optus, I've got to have
NPL TV. You've got to have a login for everything,
you know, it's easy these days. Sadly, if I don't watch the teams that I love live, next morning on YouTube, bang, highlights are there, bang. I mean, it's frustrating. Look, going back to your original question, it's all about the money. What is it going to cost these clubs in a second-tier league? Is there a proper business plan? I've spoken to a couple of clubs that were really concerned with how quickly they had to put their props in. How does it work? It's almost like you might need to go. Remember, we had Southern and Northern Division.
Yeah.
Now, it might need as a second tier to be like that at the beginning and then have the top 2 teams in a playoff series to keep the costs down. The travel.
But that's how Sydney Croatia and Melbourne Croatia came into the NSL because of the Northern and Southern Division. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's you've got to be realistic. Benefits of a second tier, absolutely. It gives NPL players a chance to shine on a bigger stage. And the one thing that really validates a second tier is the Australia Cup. When you see an NPL team play an A-League team and kick ass like they did, particularly Sydney United 58 last season, that's the fantasy of football for all of us. We want the underdog to prevail and the crowds that come with it. I mean, even my little humble amateur club, Sans Souci, played Parramatta Melita, who were an ex-NSL club. They're nowhere near where they were, obviously, but we pushed them to extra time and lost in extra time when we should have won in normal time. Now, that would have been one of our biggest results in the history of an amateur club.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty.
And they'll talk about it for years. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you take that. That's the beauty of football too. Those moments you take with you forever. They live with you. You talk about them, and that's why having the NSL reunions. I've done 3 versions of it. When I launched the charity in 2016, on the Friday, on the Monday, there was about 120 of us together at Kinesi, which is Contangalakis has got this great venue in Melbourne. So we're down at Richmond, and it was, we had a Melbourne Croatia panel. We had a South Melbourne panel. We even had Alan Davidson speak solo, Kombutsiana speak solo, and a few others. But I remember Stababath and Talic were on the Melbourne Croatian panel. But just to see that interaction and the stories that were told and the rivalries that came out of, no one loves. I don't think you love it more than when you talk about those old days. Yeah. Not just the NSL, but those moments. Melbourne Croatia had to lose 2 grand finals before they won. Sydney Croatia to lose on penalties to Marconi. Henderson's last kick as a pro, he hits the winning penalty after, I think, Clinch and Robbie missed with their...
Robbie Slater, yeah. What a game.
And there's been so many great moments in the game. And I think because of the past, there's this real resurgence now with not just our generation, but the kids that we've brought into the world, that we raised, that we took as babies to Adenza Park, to St George Stadium, to Summer Street, to Highmarsh Stadium. They are now in their early 20s, late 20s, early 30s. They've been sort of educated on the history. And I think a second tier would be awesome. I'd be very curious to see how the television ratings work, because for me, original clubs are such a unique dynamic compared to franchises that are made. Like, look at Sydney, the Wanderers, Sydney FC, MacArthur. There's no entrenched history. Now, if you have Sydney United 58 playing Melbourne Knights, or West Adelaide playing Sydney Olympic, or Brisbane, you know what I mean? All of a sudden, those old rivalries come back with a new audience. Yeah. How will that go in terms of bums on seats and everything else? That's up to the marketeers. That's up to the sales pitch. And again, it lends itself to being broadcast on a different platform. And wouldn't it be great if it was free to air?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Andy. We could talk to you for hours, and one day we'll have to have a special Andy Pascalidis hour. But folks, we're going to have a very short break. We're talking to Andy Pascalidis, who's heavily involved in an organisation called Heartbeat of Football. And after the break, we'll talk about that and how it was formed. And there is a real Croatian connection in the way it was formed. And now, I suppose more than ever, its importance, not just to football and the football community, but to the wider public. Folks, don't go away. It's the Oz Crow Soccer Show. We'll be back straight after this break.
Welcome to Slaviček Studio Architecture. Our approach combines modern design with harmonious solutions tailored to your unique needs. We listen closely to your vision and turn it into a functional, beautiful living environment that truly feels like home. Our designs cater to your needs and evolve with you over time, encouraging deeper connections with family and friends. Specializing in custom residential homes and boutique apartments, we balance luxury and comfort to create a welcoming atmosphere for everyone to enjoy. Discover a world of inviting and captivating design at www.slavichekstudio.com.au. Contact us for a journey from idea to reality. Slavichek Studio Architecture, turning your dreams into reality.
Yeah, Slavichek Architecture legend, Robbie. Thank you for the sponsorship. Now, Andy, I want to turn your attention back to 2014. And for those of us who were there at the Martin Knežević Cup, there was an unfortunate incident there where a player, Ante Bošnjak, unfortunately had a heart attack there and passed away. And that was part of, you actually getting and founding this particular charity, Heartbeat of Football, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And sadly, that happened at the Martin Knežević Cup. And Marty was a wonderful soul. I think Marty was 21. He died on an end-of-season trip with the Zagreb boys. I remember being introduced.
Tommy Pulisic, who we mentioned before. He was up there with him.
Tommy introduced me to Marty, and he was just a happy-go-lucky kid, full of jokes, just review, and thank God, Zagreb have honoured him for a number of years. I know that the Martin Knežević Cup wasn't on this year, and look, I'm sure it will be next year, but then Ante passes, and he was playing from memory with the boys out at Denza Park, I think the over 35s.
He was, yes.
And his gorgeous partner each year makes a pilgrimage to the same spot where he passed at Cars Park when that tournament is played. Ante was one. My teammate Matt Richardson playing over 35s with Forest Rangers. We didn't have a defibrillator, and we're all hoping that he'd make it. Johnny Annis, a teammate of mine at rep level in the Canterbury Association. We won a state championship with JA, who ended up playing state league with Canterbury Marrickville. He was playing with Peter Catholis and Terry Patalis at Belmore. And then when I heard about Ricky Bedini, a former Marconi defender, his nephew, Mark Akura, was 15. I looked at it. I started studying up on all these incidents, and I was trying to find out if there was a support mechanism or any strategy. And at that time, rather ironically, I was voted in unanimously while not being there. I'll never forget, God rest his soul, Mike Cockrell and everyone else clapping me as the inaugural what do they call it, Men of Football president. I had just left the hospital where my father at 84 had bypass surgery, right? So we lost him last year. He was 93 and a half, and he had a wonderful life. So all these things were happening. I was fundraising for Special Olympics in New South Wales and events, but I know I needed to do something. And I sat down with my wife and said, the only way I can make a difference, I need to start a charity. I really need to start a charity. I need to look at it, how to set it up. I've come from a charity space with Special Olympics. I know how hard it is to fundraise. And I basically said to my wife, Jane, I said, look, can we afford for me not to work for 6 months? Because I can't. I have to spend all this time. And she gave me the tick of approval.
Unreal.
And in that 3-year period, by the time we launched, we lost 15 players in 18 incidents. And now in more recent times, we've had, from calculations, and I'm getting more data to the point where I deal directly with the FIFA Sudden Cardiac Registry team, the head of medical at FIFA, Dr. Andrew, I can't think of his, Massey, formerly with Liverpool FC, Dr. Tim Meyer, the head of medical UEFA. They're looking at my model. They love the model. It's unique with the heart health testing for blood sugar, cholesterol, blood pressure, but 15 deaths in 18 incidents. And now in the last couple of years, coming out of COVID a little bit, we've had 16 saves in 20 incidents. We've had 3 saves this year. All had access to defibrillators. All had people ready to perform CPR. And when I say save, this is not an old person's issue. You know, we over 35s play our game, run around, think we're 18 again, and complain when we get subbed and all that, and drink 15 beers and 84 doughies. 9-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old, 21-year-old. So it's all of us. It can happen to any of us, anytime, anywhere. We've got to know what's inside. Now,
Andy, what are these doctors putting it down to? Like, especially like, 9-year-olds, 14-year-olds. I mean, that's not right. That's not normal.
I'll give you the classics. Now, with my testing, particularly, I did Victoria testing for the first time, and I'll mention Geelong. We're looking at Geelong, and I'll talk to the Warriors, and we'll look at doing testing down there. But the 9-year-old, the family didn't know until he was playing really competitive football for the first time that one artery was not connected to his heart.
Oh, God.
Ava Zapati, 14-year-old in Gold Coast, genetic. Jesse Amato in Melbourne at the Ted Whitten indoor facility at Albert Park there? I think
don't know.
Yeah, yep. He was playing futsal. They couldn't find the defib. Mm-hmm. Similarly, last year, Tony Danaskos, who was playing for Connells Point against Hurstville Zagreb 45s, it was Ante Chovic and a couple of the boys that shoulder charged the door to get access to the defib, because no one knew the passcode to get the defib out of the closed facility that it was at Beaker. So there's a lot of education awareness. And what happens with people that have a cardiac arrest or heart attack and survive? Their siblings have to be checked so they don't have the genes. Now, to give you a bit of clarity about heart attack and cardiac arrest, a cardiac arrest is the pulse of your heart. So your heart's beating, but when it goes into cardiac arrest, it's quivering. So that defib has to get on there as quickly as you can, right, to get it back to normal rhythm with CPR. With a defib, you have a 70% chance of survival. Without, it's about 4 to 5%.
Yeah.
A heart attack is the plumbing of your heart. Blockages. The blood is pumped into the heart. If the artery is blocked, it floods the heart, and then bang. So there's a lot of lessons to be learnt. What we do know with our testing, and it's unique, and AFL are engaging with us in cricket and other sports. Last year, we did a record 55 testing days, and 48% of people presented issues. Pre-COVID, it was 28%. I know a lot of people out there are saying, hey, Andy, it could be the vax. Let's just get a bit of clarity here. I'm not a medically trained person, but I'm part of a big alliance, and I deal directly with CEOs of the Heart Foundation and Victor Chang and a whole group, Greg Page and a whole group of people. With COVID, if you have an underlying issue for your lung, and your heart, and you get COVID, you're in big trouble, right? Now, through COVID, did we see our doctors regularly? Did we exercise regularly? Were we sitting around at home, working at home without moving much? Were we eating more than we should have? Mm-hmm. Were we really watching what we were putting into our body? I don't think so. And people that know me well have seen the change that I've had physically over the last couple of years by a diet and training and exercise. And let me tell you, I'll show you something here now. I don't know if you can see the bruising on that arm.
Yeah,
can see it. Yeah.
I might have done a blood vessel, but we're not sure, so I'm getting blood tests. When I did the full blood test yesterday, and I did some I did some scans today. What was interesting, what the doctor said to me, asked me, when was the last time you saw a cardiologist? I said, it's interesting you say that. It was like when I sort of started the charity, I did a stress test, right? And I was thinking, over 35s, I'm fit for my age, solid football history, cricket, whatever. No. I did the test. I did well with Dr. Shiva Roy at Sutherland, who's on our medical team. We have a medical team with our charity. And you know what? He looked at the x-rays, goes, look, mate, I need you to go for proper scans now. I can just see this. I said, what is it? He goes, that's like a plaque build-up on your heart. Now, if that gets bigger and worse, you're in danger of a heart attack. So I did the scans. As a consequence, I'm on blood pressure medication, cholesterol medication, and I'm also a sleep apnea sufferer. Those that know me well know that I like to party. I love going to gigs. I like a drink.
Really?
I like a conversation. But you've got to find balance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In life. As you get older, we're getting closer to the finish line. So what happens between now and the finish line? I knew that I needed to do something for our game. I'm really pissed off that I haven't had. Sorry for swearing. Actually, I'm
That's a
aggrieved
wild word.
that this charity has not grown even bigger than what it is.
Yeah.
Because if we had the proper government funding, we would have heartbeat of football set up in each state. We'd be having multiple testing sites like this weekend. We're at the Dimos Mastoris Cup. Dimos was 35 and died at Pagewood Botany. They still honour him. Almost 20 years on. Then we're at Marrickville Red Devils. Then we're at Special Olympics. Then we have Show Some Heart, Make It Red campaign in 6 locations we'll be at. We're travelling as far and high and wide as we can. We've engaged with the Bondi Rescue Lifeguards, the World Pride Football Championship, Bayside Council, Newcastle Olympic. It goes on and on. I want to tell you a very quick story. I want to make a special acknowledgement to Mark Franulovic. Mark has raised $1,300 for our charity instead of 50th birthday. His son plays for Sydney United Juniors, so we'll be doing a testing day with that fundraising. And I think people like Mark need to be acknowledged, because without that support, our charity dies. Simply, it dies. And that's why on Saturday night, I urge particularly the Croatian community, with a Croatian band at a Croatian venue, to fundraise for Croatian Club to do heart health testing. One player who survived at Belmore, I'm ringing him up tomorrow, his best mate in the same team, his name's Sam, right? He survived. His best mate went and got checked because he shit himself, right? Because Sam had to get stents in his heart.
Yeah.
His teammate went and got checked and was diagnosed with blockages, and he has stents in his heart. So if he didn't do that, if Sam didn't collapse, there would have been 2 time bombs walking around.
Jeez.
And look, don't think it's the overweight older person that is. They are generically at issue. We know that. But to put the whole heart perspective, it's our biggest killer, cardiovascular disease. For women, it kills 3 times more women, three times more women than all cancers put together.
Including breast cancer.
Yeah, all cancers.
Mm-hmm.
Breast cancer, the whole lot. You wouldn't know that. So for us, aside from doing our testing for blood sugar, cholesterol, blood pressure, for me, the great joy I get is the interaction when people come over, they see how simple it is, and they walk away thanking us. I've had people diagnosed with diabetes.
It's terrific.
It's an important mission. The education of it into the multicultural communities is one part that I really want to address, and also the support for those families that are dealing with it. Like Luis Camacho, he moved from Glenwood to Cooks River Titans, local club in the Football Canterbury Association of Sydney, first training session with new mates, said goodbye to everyone. His son rang him up. He goes, I'm a bit tired, call me when I get home. Lewis didn't get home. Lewis was found by his partner about 2.5 hours after training, slumped over the wheel of his car, gone, cardiac arrest. So I met Lewis's family at the testing day that we did at Glenwood, and one of them presented as a diabetic with high blood sugar readings beyond our charts. Yeah. So I can't stress the importance for everyone to get a regular checkup, because unfortunately for most men, we only go to the doctor when something is wrong. We don't do preventative. We don't. And we've got to change that. You know, some men jokingly say to me, Andy, I go to the most important muscle in your body is your heart. They go, second most important. I go, mate. And you know what I say to them? I go, if that second most important muscle is not working, well, the first will definitely not work.
Yeah.
Andy, you made a good point earlier about people having, issues like structural issues in their heart. And, like for those who know me, I've got Adam who's got Down syndrome. And because he's got the Down syndrome, we had a cardiologist come that second day that he was alive because 1 in 2 Down syndrome have got a hole in the heart. So he had that repaired at 4 months of age. Previously, their average age was 9. Now they can live into their 60s, etc. And so, that testing, that people live with so many issues that they're not aware of with the heart. When someone's born, you get their eyes and ears checked, but the heart doesn't get checked unless you've got something like what Adam had.
And it should be checked. I'm not sure if they are, but I do notice there's talk about the free heart checks that the government have been running through Medicare could be scrapped. That is just deplorable. This year at Glenwood, the day we did the testing, 64% of people tested had an issue for either blood sugar, cholesterol, blood pressure. And the flip side, when we did all Hunters Hill Football Club, it was 33%. What does that tell me? And we know there's heart maps that the Heart Foundation have and tell you where the key areas are that we need to go to. And that's one of the things. We've got a partnership with Novartis, and they've said, Andy, let's look at Geelong, let's look at Melbourne, let's look at the west of Sydney. And we're doing Brisbane as well. One of the defibrillators, Julia Zusa, who is well known to the Zagreb family, and Julia is one of our key partners. She does the AED and CPR, what we call confidence sessions. She also supplies defibrillators. We got her to put 48 defibrillators in the clubs in Brisbane. They told her last week it was the best $100,000 they spent because one of those defibrillators saved a player in Brisbane 2 weeks ago.
Wow, that's incredible.
Now I ask you this: what price do we put on someone's life? A life-saving device of around $2,500 can save not one but many people.
Absolutely, 100%. And so get on down there on Saturday night to Camelot Lounge and support the heartbeat of football. And of course, they can also, if they can't make it on Saturday, they can actually donate through the website and things like that, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, they can do a lot of things. And what we say to a lot of people, you can actually book a heart health day, but we try to get fundraising around that to help, because it costs us, obviously, to set it up and everything else with the nurses. But what we do tell people is some people are very proactive and they look at club grants through licensed clubs, through council, through their local MPs, because they all have slush funds. Now, I believe that if you put a proper prop to one of your local politicians and say, we want to do a heart health testing day with Heartbeat of Football. We want Julia Zusa and Response for Life to come and show us how it all works with defibs and give us some training. The best model I've ever seen this year, the Manly Association is our biggest junior association in Australia. Over 20,000 players. Every club came. Every club bought their defibrillator. Every defibrillator was checked. A couple were faulty. They were fixed. Every player in that tournament had to do a confidence session. So 327 footballers now have the confidence to use a defibrillator and also CPR. The defib talks to you, but we tested over 100 players. So, and the big thing at Manly, no game starts unless the defibrillator is on the halfway line and there's a teardrop banner that says heart safe zone.
Brilliant.
Wow.
That's the dream
great.
model
And
for me everywhere.
I was going to say that would be something like that would be the ideal everywhere. Now, Andy, we've got a couple of people with various comments. We've got Gurga Grgic. He's saying it's great that you're talking about men's health. We've got a very Croatian name, Dave Kwiatkowski or Ewelina Dave Kwiatkowski. Prevention is better than cure, Andy. We get all sorts of people listening here, which is really, really good. Now, we've also got John Bilosh. I do believe he's from St. Albans, Dinamo, Melbourne. How do we get in touch and get this done at our clubs? That's a great question, John.
Just email me at andy@heartbeatoffootball.com.au. Very simple. Drop me an email or go online on the website and you can actually look at booking a day. And just on St. Albans, we are looking at Melbourne and Geelong. For me, ideally, Geelong will work when the Warriors are hosting Melbourne, Croatia on, I think, Saturday, July 9th. Mm-hmm. It ties in perfectly for my 61st birthday celebration in Geelong.
That'll be a party.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You know what? If you guys could, at St. Albans, check the draw, whether you guys are playing on that Saturday or Sunday. But you know what? Even with the NPL clubs, a lot of those clubs have amateur teams with senior players, over 35s and 45s, that play on Sundays. So it might work that we might go to St. Albans on the Sunday with their 35s, 45s, or when I went to Melbourne the first time and Vic Health were unbelievable, Kim Ontario-Doris, they got us the funding. We tested at 10 clubs in 16 days. They were picked for me. I didn't have a choice. You know, I would have gone to South Melbourne, Heidelberg, Melbourne, but you know.
What date was that, Andy? What date was that you were talking about? Ideally,
I think the Warriors are playing Melbourne, Croatia on the 9th of July.
9th of July.
Yeah. If you Google search, I think I did that yesterday or the day before. But with
Churchill Reserve, so St. Albans are playing at home against Port Melbourne Sharks on a Friday night.
Okay, that's very interesting.
7th of July, Friday night at home.
So that game between the Warriors and Melbourne Knights. Sorry, I'm just still old school.
Yeah,
that's fine. So are we.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that game's on the 9th. This could be a perfect weekend because, as I mentioned to you off air, the Geelong Rangers reached out to us for a testing day a while back, and we said, if we get to Geelong, we'll do you. And I said to my crew with Angelo Tulloch and the rest, I said, if we can do the Warriors, because they've got a great community set up there, the clubhouse and everything else is brilliant. As you know, I was there 2 years ago. I think it would work perfectly to do St. Albans on the Friday, Geelong Rangers Saturday, and if the 9th is the Sunday, as it sounds,
the 9th is a Sunday. Yeah, it's very unusual that it's a Sunday, but obviously because of the Croatian derby, and I can probably guarantee that I'll be the match commentator on that day. So Andy, I'll have to get you on the actual show, on the actual live broadcast to talk about this. I think Football Victoria will be very happy to hear about that.
Tonci, let's work with Football Victoria. Let's work with St. Albans, and in saying that, if we're looking at 3 days over that period, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, dare I say, I would actually look at extending it and looking at testing at a couple of clubs during the week, leading into the following weekend. But I'll check schedules and all that up here because it just makes sense. Instead of just doing 3 in one hit, what I did last year, I drove down with our donated van from Crash Claim, an expert Nick Carr in the motoring industry saw my four-wheel drive dead and buried at my parents' place and donated. And Ante's seen it. You've seen it, Ante. It's like the best advertisement for heart health that you've ever seen. And on the back of it, it's in your face. It says, no one should die playing the sport they love.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
And they shouldn't.
And
I want zero deaths. I want 0 deaths on not just all football fields, all sporting fields. I damn well want defibrillators at every ground in Australia. And let me tell you one big solid fact that Mark Boyes and a lot of the medical crew have told me. There's a spend of between 200 to 210 billion a year by all governments in health. 1.5% is spent on preventative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, John Aaron was the first politician.
I was about to mention him. Yeah.
He had a heart attack in hospital in Geelong, as you know.
Yeah.
But that was after he did it first, 3.7 million pledge for defibs. New South Wales followed. That's great. They did 4 million, then added another 2. Stuart Ayres. I was part of that with a few other prominent people, and it's brilliant. But you know what? 6 million's great. I want 6 and another 0 million. So every club has one.
Yeah.
Every club should have one.
Yep, absolutely.
And when it comes down to Melbourne, if you can organise a gig around it, I mean, Andy will love it because let me tell you, Andy and I have rocked at numerous gigs. I'll tell you one quick story. We're at a Kiss cover band, and end of the show, we're hanging around, and the guy from the Kiss cover band comes down. He goes, "You're the guy from SBS. You're the guy. You're the football commentator, eh?" And Andy's going, "Yeah, of course I am." And he made good mates with the guy who was dressed as Paul Stanley that night. So if you ever get a chance to rock out with Andy, you know, I've been fortunate to rock out with Andy quite a few times, and I will be on Saturday night as well.
Mate,
so he's on the dance floor partying hard.
You know that story, you've got to tell the truth. When he rocked up, he goes, "Aren't you the guy from SBS?" And I was smiling. He goes, "It was nice to meet you, George Danikian."
No. He knew you as a soccer guy.
I missed the gig last Friday night because I was at Newcastle, but it was the Radiators in Heaven at the Crowbar. And my mate's going to be, "Is that Croatian?" I go, "Of course it is, mate." Well, it's not, but it sounds good. But look, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity, because I think that anyone that's watched my journey from, getting that chance to commentate at SBS, and, what we'll do another day, we'll go through some stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll go through. I'll give you one story how I got that opportunity at SBS. I was working at Australian Soccer Weekly, which was the staple diet back then with Soccer Action, pre-internet, mobile phones and all that. And my father got the shits because I was on $110 a week as a cadet, and I was earning $240 as a management trainee for J. Blackwood and Son.
Who was the editor at the time, Andy, if you don't mind me asking?
Theo Skalkos. Theo was the publisher, but the first editor I had was Andrew Detre.
Yeah.
And then David Jack.
There's a fellow called Keith Gilmore, is that right?
Keith Gilmore, yes. I worked with Keith as well.
One of my very first articles in soccer, I was about 10 years old, 12 years old, and I submitted something, and Keith Gilmore submitted my article or published my article. Great man.
Keith was there with John Economos.
That's it. Yes.
John Economos, Tom Anderson, Ray Gatton, Mike Cockrell, they all worked there. But in 1984, the second year I was there, I was at Max Riley's radio school, and that's where I met Mike Tomalaris and got him a job at SBS. Another story for another day. I wanted to be a commentator, and I was commentating in high school, rugby league and football. Mm. And there was a approach by Les. He goes, "Listen, Andy, we'll give you a test run, Wollongong, on Sunday if you're keen. But look, if the commentary is not good, I'll just have to revoice it." And I thought, mate, why not? I'll have a crack. I go, that's where my dad settled when he came out to Australia. I mean, I got one family married a Macedonian, a Serbian, and an Italian.
Sounds like a joke.
Figure. Greek family. Mate, Christmas, we were eating for 6 weeks. But anyway, so I'm thinking, I'm going to get a free feed, a drink, call a game. Why not? Why not? Mm. I'll take that. But as it turned out, John Bradley hit a dipping volley. Apia beat Wollongong 3-0, I think. I'll have to look at the records. And Les ran the commentary, and it got goal of the week. And he called me and he goes, "I want you to do every Wollongong game." And ironically, the last story I did at Wollongong, the last story I ever did at SBS in '94 was a story with Steve Angelov, Rob Middleby, and someone else I can't recall. Apologies.
It wasn't the mascot, was it? The wolf.
Chasing the $10 note.
Chasing the wolf. We talked about that at the start of the show. Sorry, Andy.
They were great days. You know what?
Brilliant.
As much as I love the A-League, I love the way it's covered. There was just something personal about NSL. You know, when I would go to a ground and commentate, whether it was a league game or a cup game, and I'll be honest with you guys, I went retrospective last night and looked at some old NSL grand finals, and I got a little bit emotional because I don't listen to them. Like, I can't remember when I did, and there was with one goal, Damien Morris scored a goal. Remember that goal for Adelaide City? Then that goal. Oh my God! It gives you goosebumps.
It wasn't only just the football. Like, for me, you, Les, Johnny Warren, and Greg Blake, people like that brought it to life, and you actually brought it into our homes, brought a bit of humour to it, you know, and obviously
Uncle
tackled the
Stavros,
serious topics.
forget that.
Kyle Patterson and all that sort of stuff. You know, that team was incredible and loved football from the bottom of their hearts, and brought into our homes, and SBS was a perfect vehicle for that. And so, you know, for that, we applaud you, and that's why a lot of the Croatians still love you, you know.
I tell you what, mate, it got me into so many amazing scenarios. I have to write a book, from being a VIP member of John Ibrahim's club, the Tunnel, not knowing who all these guys were, and seeing how that scene, and having cousins that had businesses on Chapel Street, from Bennigan's, Old Pepper, Viper Room, seeing sporting football celebs, looking after Alan Shearer, Kenny Dalglish surprise 50th.
But nothing beats being recognised by Paul Stanley.
True story. How much time
we got another story.
How much time do we have?
Oh, we've got to start winding it up, unfortunately. We're going to have to bring you back, mate. One last story to finish it off.
One last story, and this is a true story, and I haven't openly said this. I made the hard call to leave SBS mid-94, and I left at the end of 94. And Johnny Warren actually said farewell on air, Andy, sell our game to the masses now. You're going into a broader market. They're not football people. Keep pushing. I just got a bit upset that I didn't know my role, and then I was told I was going to be a reporter at the World Cup in LA and San Fran, which is pretty cool, mind you. Paul Trimble and his cousin had free accommodation for any time they wanted, because I had 2 locations that were fully booked. But Martin Tyler apologised to me, saying, you should be the first commentator signed here. You did all the commentaries, for Australia and the soccer. Anyway, I just didn't know what my role was in the end, and it was frustrating, and maybe there was a lack of communication on both parts. And I did a pilot called Off the Cuff, and as it turned out, the footy show started not long after, and Channel 9 were holding on to that pilot. Another story for another day. But I'm in the lift, and we were right next to the Capitol Records studio, the editing suite where Channel 9 is and still is. We were using Channel 9's facility in 94. I come out the lift, literally, with the tapes, and I had to rush in. You had to work very quickly. I wrote my voiceover in the car so we can start editing and send it back. As I get out of the lift, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley enter the lift next to me.
Not impersonators, the real deal?
Oh, wow. There you go.
All the live crosses around Europe and the rest of the world were out of these studios.
Yeah.
Rock and roll.
Oh, my God. But I still met Metallica the night of soccer.
What about Ronnie Wood? What about when you met Ronnie Wood in India? Anyway, we've got so many stories.
We've got so many stories, Andy. We're going to have to bring you back without a doubt. But, mate, it's been
Saturday night. We'll see you there.
Many fronts. Yeah, let's talk about that quickly.
You got to fly up, all right?
Heartbeat of Rock, Saturday, 22nd of April, Camelot Lounge, Marrickville, 19 Marrickville Road, Marrickville. The website of Heartbeat of Football, Andy, for all the information. They can get tickets as well. It's www.heartbeatoffootball.com.au. Is that right?
You can send me an email. I can point you in the right direction, or they can go on the Camelot Lounge website and book straight online.
Absolutely fantastic, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Great to ring you old acquaintances. Can't wait to see you in Geelong in July later this year. But in the meantime, yeah, we'll definitely have to get you back on the show. It's been an absolute blast.
And thanks for all the lovely comments from everyone. Everyone really appreciates you being on the show.
Živjela Slobodna Hrvatska.
I've got another story about that, but anyway.
That's another story. Good on you. Good night, Andy. Oh, mate, we could have gone on for hours and hours. His approval ratings now has gone higher than Anthony Albanese's amongst the inner Sydney greenies.
We went to the real kids show, and like I didn't know he was there, and all of a sudden we're just hanging around in the foyer, and behind me all I hear is Givila, Givila. I'm thinking, who's this guy? And it's Andy Paschalidis.
Andy Paschalidis. He's got a great story to tell about how he met Igor Stimac in India as well. Very similar. But that's for another day, folks. Thank you so much for being a part of tonight's show. We're going to pop that thing up for all you Sydney-siders, people in Newcastle, the Central Coast, down to ACT, as well as Wollongong. Heartbeat of Rock, Saturday, 22nd of April, which is this Saturday at the Camelot Lounge, Marrickville, owned by Croatian. And if you go there, tell them to sponsor our show. We're giving them a fair bit of free publicity today. The Croatian Connection continues, live entertainment provided by Mile Abramovic and the Mandrillos. Good old Mile, cheerio to him. And
all English covers some great stuff. Fantastic band.
Yeah, if you haven't seen him play, I think it's the Facebook page of is it Heartbeat of Football? There's an actual little bit of a clip there as well. Some great stuff there. Ante, that leaves us to say nothing but do viđenja and laku noć. For those of you that are tuning in and don't know Croatian, that's a good bye. See you later and good night. We will see you folks next Tuesday at the special time slot of 8 p.m. next Tuesday, Anzac Day night. We will not be on air next Wednesday because, amongst other things, Sydney United are involved in an Australia Cup match. And Ante, you've got direct involvement in that, haven't you?
Well, hopefully, the last Thursday I was ground announcer where they won 2-0. So, we'll see what happens this game. So
we'll see what happens. Good on you. Thank you, folks, for tuning in. It is such an important episode tonight, especially with such a very, very valuable message, a health message about men's health, and a few people have mentioned how important it is as well. Bit of a wake-up call for a lot of Croatian and non-Croatian men associated with the Australian Croatian soccer clubs. Share it far and wide. Let's get 10,000, 20,000 people viewing this either through Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever the case may be. But very, very important message. Next week, folks, we're going to have a big episode devoted to the Australian Croatian Under-14 Select Boys team that has recently returned, or still in the process of returning, from Croatia, where they took part in a memorable Under-14 International Invitational Tournament, Turnir Hrvatskih Branitelja in Vukovar. Lots of stories, lots of footage to come from that one. But that's next Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Folks, good night, and thank you for being a part of episode 33 of the Oz Crow Soccer Show. Laku noć.